help to turn on my microphone. And I welcome everyone here after our summer recess. It's nice to see everybody. We'll start our meeting tonight by standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Zambrano, please call the roll tonight.
Commissioner Engler? Here. Commissioner Gregory?
Here.
Chair Reeder?
Here.
And Commissioner Lemo and Vice Chair Simpson are absent.
Thank you. We have some public comments tonight. Ms. Zambrano, you want to tell us how that's done?
This is the time and place for public comments. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the Traffic Commission regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Speakers for a specific agenda item shall be called and heard during that particular agenda item. All remarks should be addressed to the Traffic Commission as a whole, and all documents for the Commission and the official record should be presented to the recording secretary prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be acted upon by the Traffic Commission unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city engineer for administrative follow-up. As comments can only be recorded while speaking into the microphone, please refrain from addressing the commissioners unless you're at the podium. If you're unable to come to the podium or should you need to step away while speaking, a wireless microphone is available for your convenience. Pursuant to Traffic Commission standards, public comment speakers are allowed 3 minutes. We do have one speaker tonight. That is Karen Martin.
All right. Karen, thank you. And I might add, please silence all your cell phones for our meeting tonight.
Hi. Good evening.
Yes, please state your name and residence.
Karen Martin, 2000 Ferndale Place, Thousand Oaks.
Thank you.
I was here in July, and it started with a visit with Sergeant Patterson on the phone, and he told me why we couldn't get increased patrol on Lynn Road. I live right on the corner of Lynn and Jan's. I was referred to another city planner, I don't remember, then to Kathy Lowry, then to the commission. I made a complaint, followed through by James Michiko, and Sergeant Patterson actually came out to the house. And while Sergeant Patterson was there, actually he parked his bike on Lynn Road and actually got quieter. A couple of the people in my neighborhood that usually run through were quieter. But I got a lot of excuses for why we can't have more policing in that area. We don't have fatalities. It was suggested that perhaps I should go ahead and do a citizen's arrest and go to the courts and follow through with it. I don't know how to do that. It's not my job. So I was followed through by Carrie Finley with planning. She didn't know why I was calling her. She sent me to Code and Compliance, Jeff Ware. I spoke with him about how I was passed around, and he suggested that he would call Sergeant Aguilar. I have not heard from him either. I got a number in the Acorn, and it was a 449-2499. I called them. They didn't know who to talk to me about as far as noise. So I called the city attorney, and they suggested that the Traffic Commission actually reviews traffic problems and submits solution to the city council. So that's what I'd like to have done. While I was doing my homework, I found this article from 2008, and I'd just like to read it to you. I don't think it'll take 3 minutes. It says, going into it, and this was by Sergeant Tom Bennett of Thousand Oaks, and this is probably in the Denny Gillette days, but it says 6 motorcycle pads have been constructed in medians on Lynn Road so traffic enforcement officers can safely wait for speeders to come by. Speed enforcement used to be impossible on Lynn Road because lack of shoulder and such. It's hard to safely enforce the law. That's no longer the case. Before the police staging areas were built, officers could give out about 25 tickets a month. Now they average 45 tickets a month. Okay, so that's income. A study by the University of Toronto showed that a driver who gets a speeding ticket is less likely to be in a collision the next year. Getting a speeding ticket has an impact, and it really brings it back. All I'm asking for is some patrolling. I mean, I've been told they don't patrol it. If I see a car on Lynn Road in that area, they're going somewhere else. if this is wrong, please tell me. But I don't understand. I think as a tax-paying citizen, I was a business owner in this area. I've worked in Thousand Oaks for over 30 years. I've paid taxes. I don't understand why my quality of life is being affected. These people go by late at night. I can tell you between 8 and 9 at night, there's motorcycles that go by. I know now I have a Cobra in my neighborhood. Pretty cool. I think it's a kit car, but it's still a nice car. I saw loads of dirt going by without coverage. I don't think that's legal. Cars heading southbound were making U-turns in Lynn and Jan's at that light, and I don't think that's legal. There's a lot of opportunity for you guys to make money here and to save lives. So I would like some policing. I would also like a sound study, because there was a sound study done in 2008, and it marked it. It was actually on the southbound or the southern area of Lynn Road at 64 decibel. 65 decibel is considered to be acceptable. I think between the emergency vehicles, the helicopters, the low-flying jets, the traffic noise, the cars screaming up and down, we're way over 65 decibel. And so I would like to have some solutions for the noise problem at my home and other homes. I actually went to go look at an Eichler because my husband and I really like those houses. They are even in a bigger problem because their yards are right there on Lynn Road. So I'm not alone in this. I may be the only one standing up here, but I'm tired of it. I don't sleep well at night, and I don't like being told that we can't police. So I'd like a solution.
Thank you very much. One question, please. Don't leave the podium.
I didn't use my 3 minutes. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I just, to get an understanding of where your neighborhood is without you telling me your address, are you on the east side of Lynn Road? Moore Park Road side of Lynn Road?
I am on the corner of Lynn and Jan's, catty corner from the hospital on the southwest side. I'm sorry, my directions are terrible, but I think that's right.
So you're not the same side as the hospital.
Correct.
And thank you.
And I'm next to open space, and I can't hear birds, and I can't listen to my TV with the windows open. And if I'm in my backyard and motorcycles go by, it hurts my ears. Now, I accept it from sirens because I understand I live next to a hospital, and we bought the house knowing we live next to a hospital. But
okay, thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
but it just helps me to understand where you are.
thank you.
Does staff have any response?
Yes, good evening, Chair, Commissioners. One bit of good news, and we have been, I know Jim Mashiko has been out several times, or at least once, and on the phone several times with Ms. Martin. But one of the things we did find out is Lynn Road is due to be overlaid this year. It has actually not been overlaid for about 20 years, so it is due. That'll be a nice, smooth, rubberized asphalt, which will help reduce some of the traffic noise in that neighborhood, probably fairly significantly. That is one of the biggest things one of the solutions to noisy streets is repaving with rubberized asphalt. So I just wanted to let the commission know that.
Thank you, Mr. Finley.
If I may.
All right.
I don't want to get in trouble. It's not going to help with altered exhausts. I've been told that you have to have a special scope, that there are no ways to measure sound. We have no sound meters in Thousand Oaks, which is amazing to me. As an observer of traffic, I see vehicles with altered exhaust, and you do not need a scope to see those. And all you need to do is spend some time on Lynn Road, and especially in the form. I mean, maybe we could get like a robo can, something that would sit there much like the things that say, okay, you're going this fast. Maybe give decibel sound, maybe give ratings and say, you know what, we're gonna ticket that. I mean, it's in the sound ordinance. There is a noise ordinance for this city. So I'm really at a loss if I can't get help here where I'm supposed to go, unless it's, arbitration. I don't know.
Well, thanks for coming to the meeting and
thank you.
voicing your concerns.
I have a
One more
question.
question.
I have a question. When I think of all the tools in our toolbox about mitigating traffic, none come to mind when it comes to you live off of a major thoroughfare, because we can't tell people they can't drive on roads.
Right.
We have no control over that whatsoever.
Oh, I'm not saying not driving.
I don't have a magic stripe or sign or anything, to put up there to stop what's happening.
But to
that
be told,
we know of.
But to be told that I'm supposed to arrest these people, I'm not going
Well,
up and doing a citizen's arrest.
I don't think they
I don't wanna
probably
be
meant
shot.
that, but
Did you? Okay. Okay.
all right, just a note. I don't think anybody
Okay.
would direct people to do that.
I'm not asking I'm asking for patrol. I'm asking for some semblance of an acknowledgement. I'm asking for a sound study. Because we don't really know. I mean, policing is based on information, and we don't really have any information of what the noise levels are in that area. Do we? Do we have any?
To the best of my knowledge, other than in the past when Lynn, the major
19
noise issue down all of Lynn was an issue that came up
1998.
where we could not lower, the existing speed. No, it hasn't.
Another really good point. If you don't monitor the speed, and I was told they don't ticket for under 60 miles an hour, if you don't ticket and everybody's going 60 miles an hour, now suddenly the speed limit goes to 60, right? Isn't that the way the law works? You look at 80% of the speeders and you figure out how fast they're going.
80 percentile, and the
Yeah.
city religiously monitors that road. I do know that for a fact.
Really?
Because we've been trying to lower it for years, so
Sergeant
we
Patterson?
can only lower it based on what those studies show.
Comment?
And I would ask staff to probably answer that.
Okay.
And I would add that there's no money to be made handing out tickets. They don't do it for that reason. All right.
Saving lives?
Well, yeah, that they will.
Health?
Thank you, Mr. Gregory, for
all
your
right,
input.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Appreciate it.
So what's going to happen now?
We're going to move on to our next item.
And
The meeting.
will you make some kind of approach to City Council about this, or suggestions?
That has to be an agenda item.
How do I do that?
We do it.
Okay, is that going to happen?
We'll have to see what staff wants. Staff, do you have an answer to that?
We can bring a item, if requested, we can bring an item back to the Traffic Commission. You can request us at the end of the meeting to add that to a future meeting. Bring back some ideas, some suggestions, some information. We'd be happy to do that for the commission.
All right. Thank you.
So just to clarify, you have actually already addressed that because you're going to put rubberized paving on.
Well,
Which you did it on the Olson stretch, I know years ago, really did help a lot.
yeah, that road is due for an overlay, and we know that by putting rubberized asphalt down, it will help reduce speed or help reduce noise, road noise. It's not going to change exhaust noise, obviously. It's really the tire noise and the bumpty bumps and all that stuff that will be reduced. That's just good news. That's going to happen, and that's going to help. As far as the other requested items, that would be something we should agendize and bring back to you. I did want to say in this stretch of Lynn, the speed limit is 45 through that stretch. So it has been reduced as a result of the additional improvements that we made. Had to reduce speeds. We narrowed the lanes, added some additional striping, did a lot of the things that we do to try to reduce speeds. And they were successful the last time we did a speed survey.
All right. And if you can find any way we can control the types of vehicles that drive on the street, please let us know, because I'm not aware of any. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, summary notes. Any comments on the meeting? No. Next, we move on to engineering reports. And we'll start with Michael Houston.
Yes, actually, it's Mike Hauser
Oh,
is
Hauser.
our.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
that's okay. He is our he's our transit manager and responsible for the Thousand Oaks Transit Program, and he's going to provide the presentation tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Just a little bit of background for you to get started, talking a little bit about what is, in fact, Thousand Oaks Transit. We are the provider of local bus and dial-a-ride services. We also provide the local Metrolink shuttle, which provides commuter connections to the Metrolink station in Moore Park. We also provide the summer beach bus program. And we're also the contract operator for 6 other programs in the area between Moore Park and Agoura Hills. And we are the primary service provider for the Connect city-to-city intercity dial-a-ride service. These numbers are for our previous fiscal year, which ended June 30th. Thousand Oaks Transit carried approximately 156,000 passengers on our bus service, approximately 82,000 passengers, local passengers, on our dial-a-ride service. And for all the services that we provide, both our local and contract, almost 400,000 passengers. Our fleet consists of 52 vehicles that are a variety of city-owned and leased vehicles. And there's approximately 85 contract and city staff that work on this as their primary responsibility, as well as other staff within the city that support our program. Our operations budget for last year was approximately $4.6 million, and in total, all of the transit vehicles accumulated approximately 1.3 million miles last year providing services. This chart shows you, gives you a really good snapshot comparison of bus services in Ventura County. And I'll note here, for the purposes of this slide, GCTD stands for Gold Coast Transit District. That is the service provider for Oxnard, Ventura, Port Hueneme, and Ojai. And they provide more bus service on their own than all of the other services in the county combined. That includes the VCTC intercity bus service. And in fact, of this chart, TOT would be the number 4 bus service provider in the county. By comparison, Thousand Oaks is one of the top providers of dial-a-ride service in the county, bested only by, again, Gold Coast Transit and CAT, which is the Camera Area Transit, and that is a service that's open to all, whereas our service is only open to those seniors age 65 and older and those people that are qualified under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So it's interesting to note that Gold Coast Transit does nearly 40 times as much bus passengers as we do, but we do almost as much dial-a-ride service as they do. So approximately 2013, we began a process of developing a transit master plan. This was done in conjunction with, some of you may remember, the process we went through, the visioning process 2064 in 2014. So we applied for a federal grant to help us support this program. That grant was awarded, and since that time, we've been working towards this. This community faces a number of challenges related to providing a robust transit service. This is a community that is not transit dependent, and then there's a high demand and expectation for dial-a-ride service, as those previous charts noted. Our street layout makes it very difficult to have a fast and efficient bus service. And there's been, up until this point, a lack of really a long-term transit planning. We have simply responded to the needs of the community as they arose. As development took place, we expanded the bus service to meet those needs. Some of the other things, of course, are plentiful and free parking, and we don't really have a core area in the community right now that people gravitate towards. So our goal with this project was to provide some short and long-range vision for the transit program, just like we do for other things such as the forestry master plan, the general plan that governs development. and to conduct a really thorough review and needs study of our services and assess what we're currently doing, how we compare to other agencies, how the public perceives us, and then coming together and developing some implementation strategies and funding so that we can provide a more robust and efficient service. So some of the recommendations that came out of the Draft Transit Master Plan, which we will present to Council later this fall, was a need for more frequent bus service to more locations to make better connections by expanding the number of buses and bus routes, to expand our service times so that we can, and also our areas of service, and most importantly, to begin to leverage available technologies. While we offer some very good services that are well received by the community, we are lagging a bit behind compared to some of our peers in terms of leveraging technology for efficiencies. And we also want to explore some of what I'll term the new economy, just as people are finding different ways now to have their cable television service provided and to travel and to do other things under the new economy and to shop. Transportation is evolving as well, and what we refer to as transportation network companies, you may know under their brand names Uber and Lyft. And there may be possibilities to do some more private-public partnerships. Some of the larger urban service providers throughout the country have started to dip their toe in the water on this and are doing some demonstration programs. And it may be appropriate for us to consider that as well for some of our services. And then finally, we started a moving towards a more regional approach to our service delivery as far back as 2011. And the study has shown that that really has helped improve service, not only in our community, but throughout the entire region, and something that we need to continue. We also looked quite closely at the potential for trolley services throughout the downtown, or what would become our downtown core, 1000 Oaks Boulevard. This is something that's been studied several times over the last decades. And I note that at this time, while it does work in some communities and is a good complement or substitution for lack of bus services, there are some conflicts with our existing bus services that would have to be resolved. And we are proposing a express service down 1000 Oaks Boulevard that would really serve the primary function of that, which is to get people across 1000 Oaks Boulevard as quickly as possible. So staff is, in your packet, you see a list of 27 proposed changes that the contractor recommended for this, and it was phased out over a number of years. The number of items and types varied from administrative to functional to equipment-based. Over the last year or so, staff has taken a close look at those recommendations, looked at our available funding, look to see where, frankly, we will get the most bang for our buck, and we have developed a list and recommendation for City Council that is also divided up into 3 phases that would take place over the next 3 to 4 years. There is some limited addition of staff so we can do a better job of planning our services, and then expanding services, adding additional bus routes, improving our bus fleet both in quantity and also type. We're very anxious to begin the implementation of electric buses in this community, and that's something that we're hopeful we will be able to start that process probably in 2020. And finally, begin to explore further out from our own community and doing partnerships with other cities, perhaps Simi Valley, Westlake Village, Moore Park, to expand local bus service. So it's not necessary to take a regional bus to connect between 2 cities. You can do a local-to-local connection. And typically those services are much more frequent than the intercity service and much more convenient for the rider. Wanted to give you just sort of a brief overview of the recommendations. This map represents what we would implement in the first phase of an improvement in our bus program. I'll do this by color, and I'm also going to use the mouse to help represent. The yellow and purple routes would basically be a replacement for the existing gold route, which services the Newberry Park area and connects to the Oaks Mall, which is one of our central transfer points. The idea here being is to split it up so that we can make the service more frequent and more efficient. Right now, if you ride that service, bus only comes approximately every 70 minutes. We want to get that number down to 45. The green route would serve the area of the existing green route, but we would shorten that route up and also make what we call bidirectional. That means a bus runs in each direction, clockwise and counterclockwise on the same route, so that you don't have to ride the entire route if you're at one point in it to get where you need to go. The red route would replicate our existing red route, but we would limit it solely to Thousand Oaks Boulevard as an express service. And then the blue route would replicate the existing blue route and would provide what I would term semi-express service along Hillcrest. As we move further down along the phasing, the next phase would then to be add express service up and down Moore Park Boulevard, connecting the university with the Oaks Mall and the transportation center. Again, the whole theory behind this being to make connections with both local and regional services more efficient. Not only do we operate service, and not only does the Ventura County Transportation Commission offer service in the community, but we have 2 LA-based operators who also provide bus service to our community. And then in the final phase of implementation, as we are proposing to council, we would add potentially a route that would connect us to the Simi Valley Transit service, and that would probably happen in the vicinity of Wood Ranch, and that would connect to their Service D that would provide service then on to the whole of Simi Valley. One of the consultants' proposals is also a proposal that would connect basically Newberry Park all the way to Agoura Hills under a single bus service, and that may be something possible in the future if additional funding becomes available. For those people that are interested, the Transit Master Plan, the entire document, the draft is available. It has its own website, which is on the screen, and you can also get a link to it off of the transit website, which is totransit.org. And with that, I'm available for any questions regarding the Transit Master Plan or the program.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Are there any questions from staff? Yes, Commissioner Gregory.
Oh, thank you. These are for basically daily trips, correct? Not special events or anything of that nature?
Very true, Commissioner. Our average bus rider rides the bus 5 days a week and uses it to go to and from work, to and from school.
Right. Okay. So, and that's what this whole program's about.
It is an element of it. It's an integrated look at all transit services, but the finding of the consultant was where we need the most work is in our fixed route local bus service. We compare very favorably to almost every other agency they compared us to for our dial-a-ride service. And in fact, our dial-a-ride service could be characterized as really sort of a Cadillac version of that service compared to many organizations.
Very nice presentation. Just point out one thing, and that is your tables that are in my chart. The math is wrong. It's actually better. So that's a good thing. Because I did a quick average in my head, and sure enough, it came out. So I would double-check those if those are in your master, because you do much better on Table 2 than you have down there. Okay? All right, thanks.
Thank you. Your target audience, as you described, is students and people going to and from work.
Chair, I wouldn't characterize it as a target audience. Our target audience is anybody in the community that wishes to utilize the service. That said, yes, the vast majority of our riders are younger folks, and they are typically minimum wage or slightly above earners that use the service to get to and from work because they're in a household that either does not have a vehicle or has insufficient vehicles. And then, of course, we have middle, high school aged, and some college aged students to do that. Our actual biggest growth right now is actually in the senior population because we started a novel that was novel for this county of offering free bus service to our regular dial-a-ride and ADA card holders. So while Dial-A-Ride is a very good service for very specialized trips where you need to go someplace that may be off a bus route, if you're capable and nearby, and perhaps maybe it's a grocery trip, and it's a much better deal to ride the bus for free to do that trip than to pay $6 on Dial-A-Ride to do that trip. So we do give folks the option to do that. And we're constantly looking for ways to expand our ridership base. But the one thing that is going to make that possible is going to be more frequent, more efficient service. That is what is holding us back right now.
And that, of course, becomes more expensive.
It does. For the phasing that we provided you, the approximate upfront cost, which we do have funding for right now, would be a little bit over $2 million. Most of that is in the acquisition cost for buses. And then the ongoing cost, if we were to implement everything that we provided on the chart, would be a little bit over $1 million a year. But again, that is something that is currently funded and available to us.
Thank you. What is the cost of per passenger mile?
Cost per passenger mile. I would rather do it as a cost per passenger, if you don't mind, because it is a calculation that I have readily available. And that is roughly $9 a passenger on the bus service. When we take all of the allowable deductions to do that calculation, our funding is dependent from the state and federal government, and there's certain allowances we get to take. If I gave you what I would call the gross number before the deductions, it's almost $15 a passenger. But when it comes time to actually calculate the cost to us, it's about $9. And on Dial-A-Ride, that cost is nearly twice. So it's approaching $30 a passenger.
All right. Thank you. I noticed on your survey that more frequent service was high on the list. So you're addressing that.
Right.
The other was shorter travel times. What does that mean exactly?
So in a perfect world, we would be able to offer express bus service in a community of our type approximately every 30 minutes on our most heavily traveled routes and between 45 and 60 minutes on lesser traveled routes. In this community, our average bus travel time is approaching 75 minutes. Our shortest bus routes are about 55. Our longest are approaching 90. And so while we will never have, I don't believe, the level of bus ridership that can justify those 30-minute intervals, certainly 45 is achievable. And in fact, we just implemented a new, what we call the Purple Route 2B, which basically divided up the green route. And so we have essentially cut travel time on that route in half. It used to be almost 2 hours to do an entire loop of that route. And now you can go in one direction or the other and do it in less than an hour.
Good. So that's being addressed as well.
Yes.
The last was different destinations.
Yeah, so there are areas of the community. I'll use Dos Vientos as an example, where we used to provide bus service, but based upon the ridership, it just wasn't justifiable. And it was also, going to your last question, a timing issue. It added too much time to the route. So we're looking at other alternative services that might be able to bring people from those areas to the nearest major bus stop rather than the bus come to them, and be able to do it in a more cost-effective manner. Right now we have no service south of Lynn Road along the entire stretch of Lynn Road between the mall and the Dos Vientos area, and there's other areas of the community where there's currently no bus service. And so we are looking for ways to how do we service those people that can't really be serviced cost effectively with a traditional bus service.
Thank you. Are there any other questions here?
Yeah.
Oh, Commissioner Engler.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I wondered, as you are looking at purchasing additional buses, I know that you have some that have the ability to accommodate someone in a wheelchair. Is that something that all the buses have the ability to accommodate as you're purchasing new?
Excellent question, Commissioner. I'm proud to say, in fact, that every single vehicle that we offer accommodates wheelchair passengers, both the buses and the Dial-A-Ride vehicles. And those include the ones that we own and the ones that we lease. And I might add that in terms of how we fund those kinds of items, It's funded entirely with state and federal dollars, and with the fares that the riders pay. We don't use any general fund money to pay for transit services, so there's no conflict there with, say, police or fire services or other things that are used with that fund.
I'm familiar with the fare box conversations that have to be sorted out to be sure that our services are reasonable and affordable, and to qualify for additional funding outside of the city. But I also wondered, my last question is about your suggestion of one of your recommendations. Was it about technology? What did you mean by that?
Okay.
In respect to
Right. So let's talk a little bit. We're in a very technological age right now where basically the whole world is at your fingertips. So some of the things we're going to be doing is improving the riders' ability to know exactly where the buses are and the predictive arrival times. For the dial-a-ride folks, one of the things that we endeavor and strive to do is at least 90% of the time that we pick them up within 30 minutes of the time that they've requested. Well, 30 minutes is still a long time, and there's a lot that a person can accomplish that. So if we can give them the ability to track their precise vehicle that's been assigned to them and where it's at, or to automatically call them back and let them know that your ride is going to be here in 10 minutes, and that is not somebody looking at a computer screen and guessing, but that is a precise time based upon the algorithm that's in the program to tell somebody. It just makes the service more efficient. The single most costly thing to the program that I would term as a waste of money is the number of people when we actually pull up to the door and they say, I don't want the ride. They either forgot it, that they had a reservation, or perhaps it took too long for the vehicle to get there. So these are things that we can do, and then improving the softwares and the capabilities we have to simply make services more efficient. The best thing that we can do to control cost is to carry as many people per hour as possible. And so these are systems that allow us to do that. And then even on board the buses right now, for most of our buses, the drivers have to call out the stops manually. Difficult to hear, distracts the driver. We're in the process of installing equipment where that's all automated. And it's not only for those people that have no disability, but for those people that may have a hearing or oral deficit. It provides them both visual and audio cues that, oh, this is my stop. And so I don't need to rely on somebody else to help me. Makes them more independent.
Thank you. Is there a smartphone application for the bus service now?
Yeah, currently we use a system called NextBus, and that's all one word, NEXTBUS. And what's great about that system is it'll several things. It'll tell you where the nearest bus stop is. It'll tell you all the buses that service that stop. And it'll tell you the predicted arrival time based upon what direction that you want to go. So it's a great service. We also have a great feature on our website, which is called Google Trip Planner. So let's say, for instance, and I can give a personal testimonial. I needed to go from Thousand Oaks to Bellflower to pick up a vehicle. And I used that service to plan out my entire trip. It gave me 3 or 4 options, told me what buses I had to get, which train lines I had to get, how much walking I'd have to do. It's a great resource for planning out the services.
And I assume that's a free app?
Absolutely free.
And where do people go to download that?
They can actually go anywhere on the web and type in nextbus.com, and it'll take them to that. And then you can also, one of the things we do is we allow people to view that at the transportation center. And again, talking about technology, eventually that information will be provided in real time on board the buses and probably at select bus stops as well. And I was remiss. One technology that I'm really excited about is the ability to do payments on your phone, via your phone. So while We have expanded the number of sales outlets for our pass, and I do want to do a plug that we are the only transit agency in the county that allows you to buy all of our passes on board the buses. We will have the ability to have what we would term virtual tickets, just like your boarding passes on your phone. Show it to the driver. That's all you need to do. And so you can buy passes and tickets from the comfort of your home. And that's something I hope that we'll have launched sometime in the spring of 2018.
Well, that's excellent to hear. That was actually my next question. I hate to take up the time. Do you guys mind? Oh, how clean are the buses? How do you manage taking care of the equipment?
Okay. Well, since we rely heavily on federal funds, they do require us to, when we purchase a bus, we have to keep that bus in service for a minimum of 12 years or 500,000 miles. Our oldest buses right now are 2008 models, and they are some of them are actually approaching that 500,000 mile mark already. Our buses are required by law to be inspected monthly, what we call a CHP inspection, and then our terminal gets inspected annually as well. Every bus is cleaned out every single night, goes through the car wash every single night, gets a detailed cleaning once a week, gets a detail once every 90 days. So we really do invest heavily on maintaining the fleet, because a well-maintained vehicle is a vehicle that's in service. All the city-owned vehicles, which are all the buses and all the large dial ride vehicles, are actually serviced by city employees at city facilities, and then our leased vehicles are serviced by the provider. And I can say, in the 8 years that I've been in the program, we haven't ever had a single negative finding about our maintenance
and
practices
and cleanliness of the cab.
And I think that's one thing that surprises a lot of people, particularly seniors, when we do travel training. They get on board and they just cannot believe that this bus is almost 10 years old and has 500,000 miles. And that's, they are not dirty, smelly, graffiti-ridden buses. They are clean, they are nice, they are well stocked by a driver who's been very well trained.
Good, thank you. The last question. Are you attempting to take away the areas where a bus has to stop in traffic lane to load passengers?
Bus stop locations for the local service is always an important consideration. We have ongoing programs to where we are able to install what we call bus turnouts, which are little pockets similar to what was discussed about the motorcycles for the motorcycle officers, where the bus can pull out of traffic. We attempt to stage our stops in places where the road width is sufficient to allow that bus to pull over without blocking traffic. And certainly where we place the stop, if you'll notice, our stops are always placed past an intersection instead of before an intersection. And we try to make sure that we place them in locations that are highly visible with good lighting.
Good. Thank you. I'm finally finished. Thanks for coming tonight and explaining everything. Any more questions from staff? Finished? Okay. There are no speakers regarding this matter tonight, correct? All right, continuing with the engineering reports, I should say there's no written statements either regarding the traffic or the bus system. The engineering report continues with Mr. Mashiko concerning Lakeview Canyon.
Yes, thank you, Chair Reader. This item is an action item to consider installing white edgeline striping on a 1 mile segment of Lakeview Canyon Road between Valley Spring Drive and Falling Star Avenue. So here we have a location map that shows the mile segment that we're examining for edgeline striping. It's in the North Ranch community of Thousand Oaks, and this segment is 35 miles an hour posted speed limit, and there's residential frontage along the street. Here's a photograph that gives you an idea of what the typical cross-section of Lakeview Canyon looks like. It's 36 feet wide, curb to curb, center line stripe down the middle. There's no sidewalks, limited street lights. Street lights are only provided at the cross-street intersections. And the basic concern that we've received from residents here is pedestrian and bicyclist safety. Because of the fact that the North Ranch community, most of the streets, or basically all the streets, have no sidewalks. There's concerns when there's a car traveling down the street, and there's conflicts when there's a pedestrian or bicyclist. So the addition of edgeline striping would address these concerns, and this is something that we have provided on neighboring Valley Spring Drive. If you've driven that street, you'll notice that there is edgeline striping there. We did notify the residents who front the street of this meeting so that they can provide an opportunity to address the commission if they had any concerns over this, because of the fact that the residents are along the street and we are going to be changing the look. We want to make sure they have a chance to speak on this item. Here's a photograph that shows what the street would look like once we add in the edgeline striping. We would be left with a 11-foot wide travel lane, and then a 12 or 7-foot wide area on both sides of the street that would be shared by parked cars, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Bicyclists would also be able to occupy the travel lane as well. So there definitely would be immediate benefits from this type of striping to address the concerns over pedestrian and bicyclist safety. There's other benefits as well, including that, as you notice, that the road here is quite curvy, so the edgeline striping would help guide the cars along the street through the curves. It would also improve sight distance as you pull out of those driveways and cross streets, as it moves cars more towards the middle of the road. And there's a possibility that we would reduce speed along the street. So once the striping were to go in, about 6 months would pass and we would resurvey the road by radar to see whether or not there's a possibility to reduce the speed limit. So with that, the recommendation is in the staff report. We'd be glad to answer any questions of the commission.
Thank you. Before the questions, Ms. Zambrano, I believe there's been one statement card, a written statement card that is in agreement with staff's recommendation.
That's correct. There was a letter received by staff.
Okay, thank you. And with that, any questions of staff? Commissioner?
Since we've done this successfully so many different places, in a way I kind of call this a no-brainer, but I'm always looking for additional information to see what benefits we'd get out of it, or if there's anything else we might need to do. So I'd like to ask Sergeant Patterson if there's any additional information he can provide on excessive speed or accidents or anything he knows on this road.
As far as I know, there's been no multitude of accidents or anything on that road. It's a primarily residential street. It's a connector street for the residences that are back there. I've been on that street. I know it's traveled by pedestrians and bicyclists, and I would concur that the markings would be appropriate for it. I don't see any reason that would change anything with that.
Great. And then for pedestrian and bicyclist safety, as well as reducing speed, I think that's a good plan.
Yes. Can we entertain a motion?
Okay. Yeah, I'd make a motion to take staff's recommendation and to stripe this road in accordance to their suggestion.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Zambrano, we'll take the vote.
May we take a hand vote for this?
Yes.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
And the Traffic Commission makes recommendations to the City Council, and interested parties may attend the meeting and speak either for or against the recommendation of the Traffic Commission. Any person wishing to appeal a decision of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission shall file a written appeal and pay an appeal fee with the City Clerk's office within 14 calendar days of this decision. The matter will be referred to the City Council at the earliest reasonable and available date. The appeal fee will be refunded only if the City Council overturns the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission's decision Commission. An appeal form is available from the recording secretary.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6C. This is an information item. Mr. Mashiko will speak about Green Meadow Avenue speed cushions.
Yes, thank you, Chair Reader. Again, this is information item for the before and after traffic volume and speed measurements as a result of the new speed cushions that were installed last November on Green Meadow Avenue between Lynn Road and Newberry Road. And here's a location map that shows in red Green Meadow Avenue north of Lynn Road, the segment where we installed 7 speed cushions. And then just here, the slide summarizes the steps that we took in the meetings from the time we received the petition up until council approval, implementation, and then earlier this year in May and June, we performed our after counts, speed and volume that's presented this evening. This map shows the location of the 7 speed cushions located along the street. There's, starting from Lynn Road, there's 1 each in the segment between Lynn and Cypress, and then 1 from Cypress to Capitan, followed by 5 in the segment from Capitan to Newberry Road. And this photograph shows one of the speed cushions, 3-inch high, and this photograph was taken just north of Capitan. In terms of the volume, there was a reduction of traffic volume on Green Meadow Avenue, and this slide shows the 3 segments where we performed the before and after measurements. First segment is from Lynn to Cypress, then Cypress to Capitan, and then Capitan to Newberry. The bars in blue are before, and the bars in brown are after. And what we're basically seeing is that there's about 300 fewer cars entering and exiting the neighborhood on Green Meadow at Lynn Road. That volume reduction carries through, and there's a higher reduction as you get to that last segment from Capitan and Newberry. And what we're seeing is there is diversion using Capitan to access the 3 parallel streets to Green Meadow, which are Charo, Venado, and Ensenada. We did not receive any complaints from those residents in terms of a noticeable volume increase. And here, this bar chart shows the reductions in speeds that we received. And basically, all speeds, based on our measurements, they're basically below the 25 mile per hour speed limit. Speeds are now between 22 to 24 miles an hour. Previously, they're between 33 and 34 miles an hour. So this is a very good success of the use of the speed cushions on for a street. And then this chart shows the reduction in cars, or the percent of cars traveling greater than 25 miles an hour. There's not one segment where the speed of, or the percentage of cars is greater than 14% of the cars is 25 miles an hour or more. This chart shows all the potential traffic diversion routes within the neighborhood. There was a concern that traffic would divert to other streets and cause great grief to some of the residents in there, but based on the numbers, we have no complaints of increased volume diverting to the other streets. If you review the volume chart that's shown on exhibit or attachment number 3 in your report, the new counts are shown in purple. The reduction or the reduction in traffic that you have entering and exiting from Lynn Road, well, it was offset by a gain of traffic over to Hague Road. That's the street that we were hoping that if there was a increase in traffic, we're hoping they would move over to Hague Road, which is a 35 mile per hour street. And so that has not resulted in any complaints. There's no residential frontage, and that street has sufficient capacity for that increase of traffic. All other streets had minimal changes in traffic volume. So with that, we'll continue monitoring the traffic conditions in the neighborhood and perform any additional counts and speed measurements if needed. And we'll make this staff report available to City Council in addition to any comments of the commission's received this evening. So that concludes this report.
Thank you, Mr. Mashiga. It sounds like we did something right. Yeah, there was a lot of concern about traffic being diverted into adjacent neighborhoods, but increased traffic on Hague Road picked it up. Do we have any questions from staff? Commissioner?
I have a question and I have a comment. I wanted to know about the difference between the 2-inch high speed cushions that were installed in Calle Olivo versus the 3-inch that were installed here. Why the decision to change the height of the speed cushion, and how you feel about that?
Okay, well, the installation of speed cushions on Calle Olivo, that was our first implementation of speed cushions, and we went with a 2-inch high cushions there because over there was also a concern of possible traffic diversion, and so we decided to go with the 2-inch high. The speeds that resulted from that installation were between 25 to 30 miles an hour, and so since the goal was to try to get speeds below 25, we felt that in order to achieve those speeds, Green Meadow Avenue's speed cushions would be the 3-inch high cushions, and that's what we achieved.
So that's not a part of the policy within the city. The speed cushion is the goal. The recommendation by staff is it's up to you guys to identify what you need to accomplish then.
That's true, although in part of there's a little history here. We had gone from the 3-inch high speed humps to the 2-inch high speed humps, which provided a drop usually around 20 to the 25 mile an hour part. Well, the humps are a little different than the pillows or the cushions. So we think we'll probably be standardizing on the 3-inch cushions in lieu of the 2-inch humps, just because of the effectiveness. We are looking for the effectiveness, and the 3-inch high provides a little more effectiveness.
Good to know. So having been part of that process, it was good to understand the difference. And then the other comment, I just want to compliment staff. Thank you for coming back to us, but also when you did the diagram for attachment 3, and you showed the historic numbers of the different streets, it really helped to understand, as Chair Reeder, referred to in his comment, that we had done the whole area a service. I mean, I see where we have a bump up in traffic, but it was a very complicated decision over several different hearings, both when we considered speed humps for the speed cushions for originally Newbury Road, and then later for this event. So it's nice to see what that resulting traffic up and down was, and I really appreciate that you guys went to that extra that the staff went to the extra effort to do this for us, because it really helps us understand this whole concept in deciding. So thank you.
Excellent. I like what you said. Appreciate it. Yes, Commissioner Gregory.
Yeah, I too want to thank you in the respect that, I think it would have been a mistake if we had put, and we didn't actually vote to do that, is put the humps on Newbury Road. That 3-way stop is probably diverted some of the traffic up Hague. But when I look at these numbers, since we made it more difficult to make Green Meadow a cut-through route, it diverted all that traffic over to Hague where we wanted it, because there's no residential on that. There's just homes that butt up to the back side of it. So this worked out probably better than we thought. The other thing I'd like to make note, because nobody was inconvenienced by this, the few extra cars on those little cider feeder residential streets is negligible. Is the drop in traffic since 1997 that you have in here? And do you have any way of telling why there's so much less traffic, in this neighborhood in general? because, 3470 trips down Green Meadow Road as opposed to 2610 now. But that whole neighborhood has dropped pretty significantly so far as its traffic.
Okay, there's a couple things that happened from after 1997. One of the things is that there was a signal that was installed at Hague Road at Lynn Road. So when that went in, I think that probably diverted a lot of the traffic that went over to the Lynn Green Meadow signal, and the drivers just started using the Lynn and Hague signal because it was much more convenient than traveling all the way through the neighborhood and taking a little bit more time. The second thing was, as a result of the Newberry Road speed hump petition, we did some studies, and there was a multi-way stop sign installed over at the Hague-Newberry intersection. So 2 traffic control devices seem to make a significant difference in this neighborhood.
Well, I'd just like to note that traffic control is an ongoing fine-tunement, right? But the end result is really very positive. The statistics on this, I couldn't hope for any better than this. Let's hope they continue to improve. Thank you. Good job.
Excellent. Thank you. Continuing on with engineering reports, Engineer Mashiko will have an information item. This is concerning... Ooh, I've lost track here. What do you... Oh, the BAT meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, there's nothing no PowerPoint on this, just a summary of the meeting notes that took place. I believe this was the same date as our last Traffic Commission meeting. It was just a couple hours before we had our Traffic Commission meeting, so just for your information.
Thank you.
I did just want to make one comment because Kathy Lowry isn't here. But I did see 2 big notables, and that was the $100,000 grant. I think we were told before that we received the $800 grant for the first bike fix-its station location, and that she's going for a $4 million grant, and I wish her the best. Go, Kathy.
Item number 7 is a report on Avenida de las Arbilis at Big Sky Traffic Improvements.
Okay, yes. Very briefly, we had a bid, or we went out to bid since our last meeting, and there was the bids closed, I believe it was last week, and we're going to take those bids to City Council next week so that they can award a contract, and we can begin construction sometime late October, and with an expectation of having the project completed by mid to late December.
Thank you. Any questions from staff? None? Right. Item 8, commission referrals from July 19th.
Okay, those were just to summarize. We did meet with Karen Martin, who spoke at public comments at the last meeting as well as this meeting. Sergeant Patterson and I met with her, discussed a number of issues, including her concerns over noise and speed. And also there was a comment made last meeting about the school's year was about to begin, and we wanted to see what we can do to get the word out to the school district to see if they can remind parents to drive slower and be more cautious around the school zones, and we took care of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mashiko. Item 9 is work program and commission schedule.
Chair Reader?
Yes.
I'd like to take this opportunity to talk briefly about item 8A just a little bit further. This is the public speaker today, and it is on the agenda, so I think we can report back. One of the we did meet with Ms. Martin out in the field. I I wasn't there, but I'm sure that Sergeant Patterson didn't tell her that he would not do any enforcement. I think what he probably said was that they will continue to do enforcement, but they're not always there. And I'm sure we will continue to do enforcement on Lynn Road. You know that as well as I do that enforcement is good, but you have some impact, but not continuous impact. As far as the sound study issue, they're really the noise element of the general plan talks about what we anticipate noise in the city to be, and very explicitly says your arterial streets are going to be noisier than obviously other neighborhoods and residential streets. Lynn Road is a very busy street in the city of Thousand Oaks. Speed is a factor for noise. Obviously, by us reducing the speed limit to 45 some years back was a good move. And it also recommends keeping the pavement fresh, which is one of the things that we're going to do this year. There's not a lot of other things that we would do or could do to reduce street noise, other than continued enforcement, which I'm sure the Thousand Oaks Police Department will continue to do, and you know, keeping traffic moving and keeping the pavement fresh, which we're going to do this year. So, be happy to bring that back to you on a future agenda item, but I kind of just gave it to you, unless you've got some other ideas.
Thank you. Commissioner Gregory?
Yeah, you know, I heard the frustration of that woman and, you know, Ms. Martin. And maybe I shouldn't even have mentioned anything, but, I mean, there are certain expectations when you live a certain place. As a matter of fact, it just makes me recall one of the very first meetings I ever had when I was a commissioner, where these local people wanted to live on a cul-de-sac. And I had to ask them, well, why didn't you buy on a cul-de-sac? Because if you didn't buy on a cul-de-sac, what makes you think your street's ever going to be a cul-de-sac? And my point, I guess, really is and I might ask Sergeant Patterson this, is there any way at all to police the noise coming from cars? I mean, I'm not aware of it, but maybe there is one. We haven't investigated.
Her concern was multifold. One of them being the noise from cars created by driving on the road, and the other one being the noise from the cars themselves, i.e. exhaust noise or vehicle noise emitted from engines that are running. I explained to her that the road noise is uncontrollable. The exhaust noise work as we can, but we currently don't have a way to selectively enforce the noise of a vehicle. And ultimately, we have to base our enforcement on safety and priorities. And speed and life-saving measures are much more important than necessarily the emission of a noise. And she didn't really understand my concept with that, but I think she took it in a different direction.
Right, and just refresh my memory, because we got a report once about some of the busiest intersections in town. And I know this isn't number one, but is it in the top 12? Because anybody that ever goes to the hospital goes by this intersection, and as well as people that take shortcuts, you know, to get to the 101 that live over there and want to go to the mall. I mean, there are any number of reasons people take that road, and I don't see them diminishing. I see them actually probably increasing. So,
yeah, the ADT of Lynn Road is about 25,000 vehicles a day, and that's one of our highest traveled roadways.
Right.
And again, the noise element, its primary purpose is to govern future development. There's really no additional development planned along Lynn Road. We don't expect traffic to necessarily increase or decrease based on any sort of development pressures. when things happen on the 101, sometimes people short circuit that to use it to get through to Simi Valley. But those are all things that kind of ebb and flow. But it kind of, Lynn Road is the same as it's been and is going to continue to probably be the same.
So I guess my bottom line point, because I don't think there's anything we could do, is if we took the most extreme measure we could and put 3-inch speed humps along that and made everybody slow down, all she would do would hear thump, 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 thump all day long. But there's nothing else really we can do, is there?
No.
All right, that's what I thought. I'm sorry for her. Thank you.
Commissioner Engler.
Hi, in hearing her comments, I understand the feeling she's coming from and the frustration she's experiencing. And I appreciate you guys went out to her home to see what she was and hear what she was hearing. I think that Lynn Road, being a highly traveled road system, I mean, it goes all the way through Newbury Park, and it's got problems all along the way because it carries so much traffic. I just want to put it out there that I'm glad we're doing. It's destined for an overlay. A rubberized or overlay will definitely impact the noise that people are hearing. And I just hope that we could consider Lynn Road as something we have to really pay our close attention to, as how we manage it. And maybe that needs to be prioritized when we look at these roads that are highly traveled, where we do have residents that live along those roadways. Maybe we need to look at overlays more often than every 20 years, especially with how often the technology is improving. So that's just my thought for the night.
Thank you. And please.
All right, sorry. And I should have thought of this before, but it just kind of popped into my head to ask if anybody has investigated whether a white noise generator in general would solve a noise issue in a noisy, high traffic area. And I don't know if that's ever even been investigated or it's feasible or whatever, but I would just throw it out there to see if we could Google it and find out. It might not work for any number of reasons, because sound echoes off of hills and everything, and it might be very isolated. But and I do know that the hill across the street from where she lives is a hill, so she's getting that reflection off of it, which is probably what's driving her nuts. But if it's something somebody's investigated, don't spend a lot of time on it, but let us know.
Thank you, Commissioner. There is one light at the end of the tunnel, and that is vehicles become propelled with electric motors. We'll see a lot more quiet. Ready to move on?
Yes.
All right. Item number 9, work program and commission schedule. Any questions for staff? Commissioner, any?
I just have a recommendation. Is this the next thing, or should
that'll come under the next item.
That's what I thought.
All right. Thank you. Item number 10 will be Traffic Commission comments and discussions, and I'd like to start it out, if I may. I want to take a moment to recognize the Thousand Oaks resident who flew to the George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston right before the Hurricane Harvey swept through the city. Hurricane Harvey dropped record amounts of rain and caused catastrophic flooding throughout the city. The Red Cross set up 4 massive shelters for displaced residents in the George R. Brown Convention Center. Our fellow commissioner, Susan Engler, oversaw and organized one of these shelters in Houston. I believe that it is important to recognize Commissioner Engler for her dedication as Assistant Director for Recovery in the Red Cross Disaster Relief Organization. Also, closer to home, Ms. Engler volunteered to help the Red Cross assist in the evacuation and sheltering of the Santa Barbara residents displaced by the Whittier fire earlier this year. Please join me in standing and applauding an outstanding and exceptional Thousand Oaks resident. We thank you. And if I may ask, why did you consider a role as a Red Cross volunteer?
Raising children and then taking care of elderly parents. We had family that were affected by Hurricane Katrina, and I had to be home and take care of the family, even though we were reaching out to family who were in New Orleans and they were evacuating. So I've always wanted to be able to help. So once I was at a point where my responsibilities lightened, then I was able to do what I'd hoped to. So that's why.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion?
Just kudos. You know, a lot of people always want to help, but only a few stand up and serve. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Time for adjournment?
Referrals.
Recommendations for referrals. Did we? I think we did that. Well, that would come under common sense discussions, wouldn't it? So we'll open up that again.
That's what they mean.
Yeah. So does anyone want to ask staff to look into anything?
Yeah, I have one. And I've observed 4 times now people running a red light at a left-hand turn. It's on Moore Park and Jan's. It would be the 2 southbound left-hand turn lanes, all right? It's always at night that I've observed this, but it's happened from either lane, and that the straight green light activates, and the person at the lead of one of those lanes jumps through the intersection. And I tell you, by the grace of God only is somebody not hit. Now, I cannot identify anything that's miss, but to see something that many times, I didn't know if we could make an improvement or not. I think it's just, that reflex that somebody's in a hurry and the green light pops on and they think, it's like a dual light. But boy, I'll tell you, when one of them, when the opposing traffic came, the guy was as shocked as anything that somebody ran a red light right in front of him, and that's a busy intersection there. So I don't know if we can correct the cause, but to see something 4 separate occasions, and again, it happened in the left and the more central turn lane. And it just could be 4 bad drivers, but if there's something you can observe, I've only observed it at night again, but it was scary to watch that. So if there's something we can do, and I don't know if we can, please take a look at it.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to add something to that, too. It intrigues me that it's only at night. I'm wondering what the lighting is like there, whether there's any interfering light in back of the left-hand turn arrows that would make that not as visible as it would be during the day. Just a thought. Oh, all right. Thank you. Now we're ready to adjourn.
There you go.
Okay. The Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission is now adjourned until 6 p.m. on October 18th, 2017, in the boardroom of the Civics Arts Plaza on the 3rd floor. Thank you. Good night.